to order. Call the meeting to order. Let's start with a roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton.
Here.
Trustee Dickon.
Here.
Trustee Eastman.
Here.
Trustee Haber.
Here.
Trustee Hollander.
Here.
Trustee Jamerson.
Here.
President Ford.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, I just wanted, we didn't do it at the last meeting. I don't remember, maybe we did, but I just wanted to remind anyone who might be tuning in that we are holding the meeting, this meeting remotely because of the governor's ongoing disaster proclamation and emergency orders allowing for the holding of this meeting by remote means.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. So moved. Second.
Okay, are there any further comments or suggestions or additions or deletions to the minutes? Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton.
Aye.
Trustee Dickon.
Aye.
Trustee Eastman.
Aye.
Trustee Haber.
Aye.
Trustee Hollander.
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Director of Community Services is not with us this evening. Plan Commission report.
I don't have much to report, just that on Thursday night, June the 3rd, we will have a public hearing to consider a request under the Riverwood zoning ordinance for the property at 2240 Riverwoods Road to reduce the required side yard from 30 feet to approximately 22 feet to allow construction of an addition for a new elevator. So,
Are there any questions? Are there any comments? Any discussion? Thank you.
you're welcome.
Treasurer's report. Might be a little early in the month, right? Consultants. Pat, do you have anything?
Just very briefly, we were supposed to take delivery of our upgraded water meters last week, but I'm told that there are, of course, supply chain issues, and he's hopeful that the meter equipment will get delivered sometime this month. But we've got all the vendors lined up, and everybody's just standing by waiting on delivery. That's all I have.
Okay, any questions? Village Attorney,
I think everything I have is on the agenda.
okay. Village Ecologist isn't with us. Police report, please.
I just have the activity that's in your packets. Activity is way up compared to this time last year when we were more locked down. And it's very similar to the activity that we experienced in 2019 before COVID started. That's all I have.
Questions for the chief? Okay, it's my turn. Information items and comments from the president. I wanted to just go over three things. The first is anticipated 2021 projects. As I've been moving through things, I see that we might have two large projects coming up that could cost, could be expensive, may not be expensive, but we are going to absolutely explore them. One is the website, and Lily is going to be leading the charge on that one. And the other is records, taking a look at our internal records and assuring ourselves that we have everything, they're all in order, and we can find things like contracts and resolutions and all that very easily, and that they are more accessible, possibly through the website as well. Opening Village Hall and board meetings. I think at this point, we're just going to wait and see what the governor's order, how that pans out and how long it lasts and what comes of that afterwards, and if we're going to extend anything. So right now, I don't anticipate anything happening for the next June meeting. We possibly might be changing things around for July. So Village Hall is still closed, and still people who enter are going to be asked to wear masks and social distance. Henry, your hand was up.
Right. just before you got online, Rick and I were talking about publicizing or at least announcing that the campus is available for use. We've never had that in the Village Voice. We haven't on the website. I don't know that anybody really has been using it. Maybe they're waiting for us to announce that it's here and ready. Since you're talking about opening Village Hall, I thought maybe we could open the campus and publicize it a little.
That's a great idea. I think what we're waiting for is posting the OSLAD sign and getting that grant taken care of. Am I correct in that?
That would only be for closing out the grant, but in terms of the ability to use the facility, I think you can use the facility now.
We can use it now?
Yeah.
Okay, great, great. I didn't understand that. I know that we're done with construction, I think in phase 1, if I'm not mistaken, and we probably have more discussions to go about improvements over the years. And so
Maybe we could put it on that, on the LED sign that we have that's on
yeah, let's,
Sounders, and maybe, campus plan open or picnic there or something.
we'll coordinate the communication on that. I think, we just open it and it's not, I don't think there's any need for anybody to reserve the pavilion or anything like that. I don't know that that's necessary. So we'll get together and coordinate. Maybe Lilia can help out with some communication on that through the Village Voice and maybe emails. Trustee Clayton, I see your hand.
As Trustee Jamerson knows, I have some concerns about whether the campus is done or not done.
Mike, you're a little hard to,
We can't hear you, Mike.
On my sound.
you're muted now.
Go ahead. I'll work on my sound.
Yeah, he said his microphone's not been working properly. He says, go ahead. We had this problem the other night at our homeowners meeting too.
Is there a phone number he can call in on?
You go to the invitation.
You know what, how about if, you know what, Mike, how about if we come back to you when the communication is sorted out? Is that okay, or? Okay, let me make a note.
There's a list of phone numbers on the Zoom invitation.
Yes.
That you can call from your cell phone.
Okay, you're me. Oh, did you hear the chief? Okay. The last thing I thought we should go over is because we've gotten a couple of these now, are responses to emails that are addressed to the board. And we have to be very mindful of the Open Meetings Act and who responds and how we respond. So I think that if we try to centralize this, if it comes to the board, perhaps we can centralize that in the mayor's office. And what we can do is, if the trustees would like to respond to a given broad email, send your response to me, and we can either coordinate, I can send it out, or we can find, maybe if there's somebody in our group who has more expertise, they can answer the email. But again, when we get these, I would suggest that we centralize the communication, to be very careful that we don't end up inadvertently stumbling into the Open Meetings Act with timing of emails back and forth amongst ourselves and so forth. Rick?
I think that makes sense. My only concern would be timeliness of responses. If you're waiting for everybody to respond to you, and then the resident feels like they're being ignored. And that's just theoretical. I'm not saying it's happened, but
Yeah, well, not yet.
yeah. So I think it's good to try and centralize it so they don't get messages coming from 6 different directions, and different messages on top of that, right? That's the other issue. So
Absolutely. I think we just give it a go and see what happens. If it turns out that, that there is a big delay or something, or maybe you could, when those come through, you can wait for, if you don't get a direction from me, then assume it's been done. If you get a direction from me, then I'm asking you to respond. Henry?
if you're going to respond, and we've all been sent the email, could you copy us, or at least blind copy whoever it was sent, so that we know that it was done? So we have a copy of your response?
Or the response, as it may be.
Or the-
Bruce, is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. I write notes. I don't. I'm not typing anything. That's all that I had, that I wanted to discuss. Other things are on the agenda. My light just came on.
Oh, Mike, I think he just came out.
Oh, oh,
Maybe it's him, I
oh,
don't know.
I don't know. Mike, is that you on the phone now? Can't hear you now either.
I guess it's not.
Is there a way to unmute him?
He has to unmute himself, I think. Can you not wait for,
Oh, there he
oh,
is.
Yeah, that's not-
Okay, anybody hear me now?
well, this isn't perfect.
It's got a great beat, but it's hard to dance to.
I don't know the words. This is, that's
Think you-
that's on the annoying side.
Yeah, can we turn it off? There we go.
I think it's probably one way or the other. You either need to be on the computer or need to be on the telephone, but I don't think you can be on both.
Well, I think
Because I think you'll get reverb or something.
I think if you're gonna be on the phone, you have to,
Mute
you
the
have to
computer.
mute
Use
the
speakers,
computer and turn the speakers off.
right?
So,
Can
Way
you
to
hear me
go.
now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, then I'm just gonna participate via phone.
okay, well, you were starting to comment on the campus. You wanna come back to that? Let's do that.
As trustee Jamerson knows, I have some concerns about whether the campus is truly complete. And I would very much appreciate a kind of a side meeting at some point or another with trustee Jamerson and the mayor to discuss it further.
Okay,
Could we have an understanding as to what that means exactly? Like what's not complete in your eyes, or, you know, what's the issue, so that we all understand what the issue is, if there is an issue?
Well, there was supposed to be a discovery center built on the western pathways. And there was some sizable amount of money that was in the budget for that discovery center, and it didn't get built. And the western pathways were supposed to be handicapped accessible. They may meet the federal standards for being handicapped accessible. But my wife got 1 foot into the thing and buried her wheels in the wood chips. So those pathways are not handicapped accessible.
Okay,
and actually, that's first I've heard about the path, so we should have a meeting about
okay,
the plan. I did know about the Discovery Center. There was some confusion with the architect on signage, and the money that the contractor had in for installing the signs was given back to us as a deductive change order. But that doesn't mean that the plan is 100% complete, to Mike's comments, so.
okay, we should have this meeting before should we have this meeting before we open up what we can open up?
I think the question of whether you can open it up is whether it's safe for the public. That's the question, whether there's an element that still needs to be added or was not properly, included in the work. That's the contract matter. And, finishing out the grant is a regulatory matter. My primary concern would be that someone has gone through it and said it is complete and meets all the applicable safety and other requirements.
Henry, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I think that maybe we can put a sign up before the path saying it's still under construction, the handicap path. So someone else doesn't get stuck there. Just put a little sign saying it's still maybe under construction or not yet finished, so we don't have a problem.
I believe our consultant on the campus plan, Ben, walked through that with John Norris just before John's term ended, and I would think there would be some kind of report on the final walkthrough. I would look to that. I think we should have something like that before we invite the public.
Yeah, they scheduled that walkthrough on a time and a date that I was not available, so I did not go on that walkthrough, and I have no idea what the
Okay,
outcome.
well,
Can we do a redo on the walkthrough?
We could. I think the thing to do is to check with Ben and see what he says happened, and if he was pretty good about taking notes and disseminating them, so.
Okay,
I have a question.
yes, I'm sorry, Mike.
Would I be correct that there's nothing precluding people from using it? It's just that we want to make an official announcement that it is now open, correct?
I would say that's correct.
I mean, it's not cordoned off or anything like that, right?
Nope, the gates open, the part of the parking lot that is, there is a part, the south part of the parking lot where the pavilion is, or the shelter is, whatever you want to call it, is chained off so that people don't drive through there. But there's ample parking and it's accessible from the street. There's no fencing anymore or anything else. So it is open for people to go to if they knew they could go there.
Right, and the chief's not gonna, if someone's there, the chief's not going there and saying, this is not open, get out, right? I presume?
That's correct. I'm not.
Okay, so then it's just a matter of making the announcement, like, if you're not using it, you should be using it because it's done.
Bruce, you're not commenting on the safety issue? Is that, would you
Uh,
think we would be more secure if we, if we had another walkthrough or check the walkthrough notes?
I'm just suggesting that we review what it is if Rick doesn't feel that he saw that, because, we're responsible for the safety of all village facilities. Michael is pointing out that people can get onto it right now. So we have the exposure right now, whether we've,
Oh, okay,
dot all our i's or not. So we should be looking at it to make sure that. And I'm only raising this up because, now that Mike Clayton mentioned this, we're aware that maybe there were some issues. I didn't know that there were any issues, but if we are worried that there could be, it's worth a second look.
okay. Well, we'll get in touch with Ben and then we'll set up a time with trustee Jamerson and trustee Clayton. And at the same time, let's start working on some communication so that we don't delay that once we get this feature settled out.
Do we want to have some kind of a grand opening at some point in time to celebrate its existence? Or is that something that we're not really thinking about? I mean, it would appear to me that this is something that we put a lot of money in and it was a big investment and it's supposedly going to be this great thing for the village. We really ought to be using it as part of the branding and as part of the celebration of the village.
Good point. Good point.
We need trustee Chamberlain to promote something here. A wine and cheese at the pavilion.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Wine and cheese at the pavilion. Maybe high schoolers will get to it first. Okay, then let's have this, let's check with Ben and let's start getting things rolling. I think when we were talking about a grand opening, we were thinking maybe later in the summer. But now we'll try to move that up a little bit. Is there anything else on this issue? Okay, are there any visitors wishing to address the board?
There are no emails. Didn't you have something?
Oh, oh, no, that was the email thing.
Okay, I thought
That's
that's
it,
what
yeah.
you were talking about, but I don't have any new emails.
Okay, no, there are no new emails. There are no new emails. Approval of the bills. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move.
Second,
There any discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Clayton, trustee Clayton.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to new business. First item, Chief, do you want to walk us through the wellness contract, please? And Attorney Huvard.
Okay, so it's been a tough year to be a police officer for a lot of reasons that everybody's well aware of. And there's been an increase in police officer suicides, and there's been some mental health problems, not at our department that I'm aware of. But I heard about from some other departments, a company that was doing wellness checks for officers. They're licensed mental health professionals, and they discuss an officer's current abilities to cope with job stressors and to learn additional healthy ways to deal with these stressors. The cost is $175 per officer, which would come to a total of $2,800. So I'm asking the board to approve signing an agreement with the First Responders Wellness Center to provide these wellness checks.
Trustee Haber. Unmute yourself.
My recollection is that we had something like this that was already part of our existing plan, health plan. Didn't we have
We
this?
we have a employee assistance program. I'm sure
Right.
that's what you're thinking of.
Yeah,
And that's something different where if a person is having trouble, they can call there and get some kind of assistance. And some of it up to a certain point wouldn't cost anything, then it would go on their health insurance. But I can't make that mandatory. I'm considering this training. I want everybody to go to do it. And this is something they specialize in. And I'm just going to have everybody do it while they're on duty. They come out at night and they do this. I'm going to do it myself. And whether a person thinks they need it or not, I just think it's important just to hear what they have to say. I'm going to tell the officers they don't have to say anything if they don't want to, or they can tell them whatever they want to tell them. And it's all confidential, unless of course they threaten to harm themselves or somebody else. But other than that, the only thing I'm going to know is that they showed up. And if it helps
and
somebody.
I'm not against this, but I'm just saying, couldn't you require it within the context of what we already have, though? Couldn't you say, I'm requiring all of our officers to contact this facility that we already have available, so as part of our plan, and have them reach out to them and have a 1 hour therapeutic session, which wouldn't cost anything?
I'd have to check on the cost, but this company specializes in first responders, and I know other agencies that are using them. And I have an officer that's on the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force, and the task force had all the investigators go through that, and he thought it was very worthwhile. And they're all ex-law enforcement or in related fields. Well, if we went through the EAP, I don't know who we would get, but I'm confident it wouldn't be anybody who has any special relationship with law enforcement.
Okay,
Trustee Jamerson.
I think if Bruce's EAP works the same way ours does with our union electricians, that it's more of a reactive group. They react to situations as opposed to, this sounds more preemptive. And so I'm guessing that it's better to be preemptive, because I'm sure that with our EAP, they wouldn't have the evaluation techniques that this organization sounds like. I'm not familiar with them, but I'm just drawing on my experience with our EAP. So
I think that's generally right, that the EAP makes referrals and they develop their own resources because it's an insurance company. And I don't think we have the right under our EAP to tell them to accept this particular agency and make this the referral source. I think it's like one of those insurance products where they develop their own, set of referral sources. So this is, I think, more specialized.
might it be worthwhile to check with our carrier to see if this would be covered?
It's not insurance, though. The EAP is totally separate from our insurance, just to correct that. I brought the EAP in 10 years ago or more. Actually, Trustee Jamerson is correct. I should have said that they're more reactionary. So if somebody comes to them with the problem, they discuss the problem. This company will actually has a whole litany of things that they'll cover with the officer, even if the officer doesn't want to say anything, and just to try and give them some tips about staying healthy mentally. So I'd rather do this than try and do something with the EAP, because this is specifically what I'm looking for, where the EAP is really not exactly what we're looking for.
Got it.
Is there any further discussion? Any other questions? May I have a motion to approve the wellness contract for our police department?
So moved.
Second,
Further discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
thank you. Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the approval of the electrical aggregation contract. Trustee Jamerson, will you please lead us through that?
Sure. So I'm going to give a little history about electric aggregation because we have two new board members that I don't believe have been through it with us. I believe it was 6 years ago, we went to a consultant, Mike Mudge, who is on the call with us tonight from Rock River Energy Company. And they basically go to alternative energy suppliers with the whole village, get a rate, and then everybody in the village that wants to be on that program gets that rate. It's an opt-out, so everybody's there unless they opt out. The first 2 or 3 years, I believe it was, this program saved the village residents about $750,000 collectively. Since then, rates have changed and they haven't been quite as favorable for savings. But our contract is up on August 1st of this year with Dynegy, who is our current energy supplier. So there's a couple of things that come into play, and it's a little more complicated than it was when we started this 6 years ago. So there's different things out there now. And actually, Lori Breitkoff has asked several times about solar energy and community solar projects. There isn't, at least from what I've seen, and Lori, you're welcome to comment on this, but there isn't any collective solar energy products out there right now that the village could have everybody join automatically. Most of them have to be opted in individually, which is not necessarily good or bad. There are certainly discounts available if you go that way, and some of them are 20%. You know, they're huge, but there are some drawbacks as well. It's not seamless. So what's in front of us tonight is, if we're going to continue with an electric aggregation program, we need to do something. The board needs to act tonight and let the mayor sign contracts, assuming that the village attorney approves what she's signing. The current rates were sent out today with the preliminary packet. They change daily. Although I think we can lock them in, and Mike can answer that question in a minute. But, you know, as of last week, they were a different rate than they are today. So what's in the memo that is in the packet gives basically three options. There's the traditional aggregation, which is what we're doing now. And that current rate, I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me, but it's in the packet. The best rate right now, if we go with the traditional packages with Dynegy, and we would do a 3-year contract, which is 6.947 cents. The current ComEd pricing is 6.985 cents. So there's very little difference between the two plans at the moment. Now, ComEd changes their rates, I believe, twice a year. Mike can also comment on that in a minute. So, the rate could go up or down from there, and I can't remember which one usually goes up. I think it's the winter rates, but I'm not sure. It might be the summer rates. So anything less than 3 years doesn't pay because the rates are higher than ComEd's rates. And we're locked in. So if ComEd rates drop, the village program is locked in, but the village people, the residents, can leave the program anytime. There's no cancellation fee, and they can go back to ComEd, but they have to do that on an individual basis. We can't do that as a community. If we decide to go with the traditional aggregation, and we don't have to act tonight, but if we don't act tonight, what happens is they basically have to cancel the contract. They move everybody back to ComEd. And then if we decide in 3 months or even 2 months that we want to go to some kind of a municipal ag program, then they have to opt back. We have to send notices out to everybody again, and they have to opt back in. And it's very confusing. So if we're going to get out, we need to get out and stay out, in my opinion. Or if we're going to go in, we should go in and stay in. That's the first option. There's a hybrid option that's in the packet where it's a little confusing. I had to ask Mike several times about it, but basically there's 2 companies that do this on that list, and their rates are not the lowest rates, but everybody that goes into this pays the current ComEd rate, whatever that might be. ComEd goes up, you pay the ComEd rate. ComEd goes down, you pay the ComEd rate. What happens is that they cherry pick the customers in the village that they can make money off of with the rate that they're charging, and those people they send back to ComEd, and the other people they put on the green rate, and then we can become 100% green certified, and they use some renewable energy credits. Certificates so that the community is basically 100% green. It doesn't mean that everybody in the community is getting green energy, because some of it may be coming from ComEd's normal sources. That's a second option. The third option is to do community solar, but that's the people have to opt in to that. And if you do opt in, most of the time there are long-term commitments, and there's pretty high opt-out fees. If you get into it, then you have to get out, you have to pay a larger bill. But we can do that. We can still do a municipal aggregation program and have the community solar, and then we as the village could do more research, and as these solar projects come online, we can then direct our residents where to go to opt into the community solar. They wouldn't have to pay an opt-out, and they wouldn't have to pay to get out of the community aggregation program. One of the issues that you have to remember with community solar is that they will be getting 2 bills, at least the ones that I know about. You get 2 bills, one from ComEd, one from the solar company, and there's a discount on the ComEd bill that makes up some of the pricing on the solar bill. So it's a little confusing for the residents, but I'm sure that people that want to do it are going to be able to figure it out. It's not super complicated, but the other ones would be 1 bill. Everybody would get 1 bill. So I don't necessarily have a recommendation. I think the board needs to talk about this and decide what we want to do. Mike is on the call, and if you have questions above, I think I've given you everything I know about it. I wish I knew more, but that's what I know. So yeah.
Would it be helpful if we introduced, to some of the trustees, Rick may not know who Mike Mudge is, and maybe ask Mike, if we just went with the simple electrical aggregation that we have, what are the chances, as far as he can tell, that we would make out better than just going back to ComEd?
Just 1 minute, time out a second. Trustee Dickon had a question, and I want to let her get that out before we go a little further.
Yeah, my question was whether this company actually has what ComEd calls peak time saving hours. So basically, ComEd will actually credit your energy bill on hot summer days when you reduce your energy usage below your most recent average usage during peak time saving hours. And I believe that program is active between like May and October, if I'm not mistaken. Is that something that this alternative energy source offers?
That'll be a question for Mike to answer, because I don't know the answer.
Okay.
So maybe Mike, if can hear us, can you hear us, Mike? I hope.
Yes.
Okay.
Can everyone
Okay.
hear me? You give me a thumb up?
Yes. Bruce, did you have something you wanted to say before the consultant goes on? Okay, thank you.
So
Go ahead, Mike. Mike Mudge. Thank you very much.
Introduce yourself, Mike, and then maybe tell everybody what I said that was wrong, and maybe answer Lilia's question as well. That would be great.
All right. Rick, I think you did that pretty well. You know, for an electrician, you handled that pretty well.
That's right.
But we've been doing, just reiterate a little bit on the background. We've been doing this since 2012. This will be our 4th contract. And that's just how time goes so fast. And I was invited to Riverwoods, and I enjoyed my trip in there. And I just really liked that. I thought, boy, if I lived in the Chicagoland area, I got my chosen community. I don't know if I could ever afford it, but that's what I liked. And it was with the old Village Hall. But with that, I'd like to answer the first question on the ComEd time of day. If a person wants to go on the ComEd time of day, on the website, it talks about the times and the months. And I had my son on that so I could track it and keep track of it. For a long time, we were saving a little money every day, but it's just on when you use things like a dishwasher later at night, or drying clothes, washing clothes and that, nights and weekends. There is savings, but you have to be on ComEd itself to do that. And if somebody's on this program, they can opt out of the community program and go back to ComEd. There's never any termination fees. Same way if someone's moving into community and they want to join this program, they can join anytime, and that rate is set for them during the length of the contract. Now, though, as Rick mentioned, and I call him Jim, and that's just a mental thing, I apologize for that. But as Rick mentioned, the rate is very close to ComEd. If you do approve a contract tonight, that rate is set for the next 3 years. We do have an issue out there where Exelon is looking at possibly closing down a couple of nuclear stations. So I see the value of this fixed rate because we don't know what rates will do. But again, what we're doing is giving the people an extra choice. Today I was talking to one of the suppliers that offer the green option, and to do that they have to go out and purchase RECs, and everybody gets 100% green RECs. Now that program, the RECs have gotten too expensive. They're doing something a little bit different. It's called a hybrid. So for now, that program's off the shelf, more or less. There are some neighbors of yours, like the North Shore Group, and I think Bannockburn, that have done this. If we do a contract with Dynegy, there is an option where people that want 100% green power do have that option to opt in. And that's about 3.5 mils higher than the normal rate. With ComEd, you get about a 22%. All their energy is purchased from wind or solar or whatever. This hybrid, this RECs that we were talking about, they got expensive. Now they're capturing these RECs from waste heat and other things. So we're not really getting the solar and we're not getting our renewable energy credits from solar and wind. So it's not the pure program that it was a year ago or so when it started. So that's something I learned new today, Jim. Rick? What I would do or suggest the village do is you can lock in to this program. The people that have been on it for a long time kind of like that. One year we went higher and we sent out letters to everyone in the village that said, you know, here's what the ComEd rate is. Your rate is higher. And we only had like anywhere from 1% up to 10% of the communities that were over ComEd that left. So people like that program and the fact that the boards, the councils was reviewing and they felt comfortable about that. The other value is the community solar. And there's some things going on there also, but I'll try and be real brief about that. If someone wanted to do community solar, they would get solar panels off-site designated to their name. They would get credits on their electric bill, as Rick mentioned, and the discount that you'd see on, like if it was a $40 discount on ComEd, then they would get 20% off, which would be $8. Then their cost would be $32 for just the energy charge itself. So it comes out to about 6.1 cents, but that is a one at a time sign up. And that's the way the law was written, and ComEd cannot, they can do a municipal aggregation program with their billing system, but when solar come on, it's a little bit different. So the solar provider then sends a bill, and there's a lot of different ones. What I would suggest to do is we would research and find a solar provider that, like what the Mayor's Metropolitan Caucus is doing, and I'm looking at their program really hard for you guys, where they're not tied into a 20-year commitment, and there's not a $350 termination fee if you want to leave it as a customer. So I want to find something that way you could put that on your website. If somebody's called and says, you know, I expect savings out of this program, we would say, well, here's an option. It's like about a 15-page agreement, and then they're set. And we try to get one where they can opt out after 2 years or something like that. So we can negotiate, and then that was something the community could do and feel good about backing. The other option on solar is to go with the community supplier, as I said. What Rick mentioned about going back to ComEd. At the end of the contract in August, we would, the way the law is written, we would have to send all the people in the community program back to ComEd. Now, they have the right to go out and choose their own supplier, but that's gotten to be expensive, and normally the rates are always higher than ComEd. The acquisition costs for these suppliers, their costs of acquiring that account costs them more than what they can save people. I'll stop right there to see if there's any questions. We're talking about three different programs, so.
Trustee Haber?
So Exelon or ComEd has been in the news a lot lately regarding various issues that they're having. And some of the things that I've read are that as a result of potentially some litigation, they may have to give back some rate, like refunds or rate relief to the customers. If we were on a aggregation system like Dynergy or something, would we be able to still benefit from that rate relief, or would we not?
That's an unknown. One year that we did send letters out to everyone that the ComEd rate dropped, that was a transmission regulation, and ComEd had to roll back like 10 or 12 years of transmission fees, partially back to customers. That dropped the ComEd rate way lower than a lot of our communities were at that time. So Mike, we would have to address that at that time, depending on situation. With the Byron and the Dresden plants, you could also go the opposite way on us. But at the end of the day, the resident and small business still has the final vote on what they would like to do. Does that answer it, Mike? That's the best I can answer now with what we know.
So my concern would be, I know that there's 2 class actions that I think are pending against ComEd right now. And then there's some other litigation pending against ComEd right now, where part of the discussion is rollbacks and rate relief. And I would just be concerned that we would not be able to benefit from that to the extent that it does come through, because we're on an aggregation. And to the extent that the current rate that ComEd is publishing is pretty much identical to the rate that we're going to get from Dynergy. The difference only is that we're locking in the rate for 3 years, whereas we're not locking it in with ComEd. But yet again, we don't know where that rate's going to be. It may go up or down over the next 2 or 3 years. So it doesn't sound like there's a compelling reason for me to rush into this tonight to sign up a new contract, but I'm certainly willing to listen to other viewpoints.
Trustee Hollander, did you have your hand up? Or
Yes, this green certification, does that have any specific benefit to us, like being a tree city? Does that help, maybe Pat, does that help in scoring for federal or state or county dollars, being a green certificate community? Or maybe Bruce knows?
It certainly doesn't impact our, say our score in the surface transportation program or any of those federal project funding sources.
Okay.
Bruce Hoover, did you have? Yeah.
Michael, I don't know if when they do those rollbacks, do you know, would it only apply to people in proportion to the time period during which they were paying ComEd? Because if we've been paying Dynergy all this other time, would that be a factor? That's something an unknown for me.
I think usually when you see these rollbacks, they're always on a going forward basis, because they can't really figure out, usage and stuff. So it's always like, if you're a current customer, those current customers are going to get those benefits.
Got it.
Again, I don't know. I mean, I'm not part of that lawsuit. I wish I were, but I'm not a plaintiff's class action lawyer. So
Yeah. So the disadvantage to our residents, if we do the aggregation, is that if ComEd does drop in rates, they're forced to opt out, which we know that there's a certain stickiness. We know that it's an inconvenience to opt out, but they could opt out to get those lower rates if it happened. It's just in the past, as Mike Mudge was saying, they haven't. On the other side, if you lock, your rate isn't going to go higher. And I guess the question I would like to ask Mike Mudge is, are we still confident that Dynergy can honor a commitment for 3 years, so that if there was a benefit to locking in the rate, they're appropriately hedged in some fashion that we would actually gain that benefit? We've never really had, a contrary experience, but if the board was going to decide it was worth locking in the rate, I would want to ask the question, are we pretty sure that they can honor the rate? I'm thinking about what happened to some of the energy suppliers this last winter who had a bunch of forward hedging contracts and suddenly had to charge a bunch more. So I don't know if you can answer that, Mike, or not. I thought it would be worth asking.
It's a good question, but I want to go back to maybe what Henry and Michael was talking about, reason to lock in tonight. And then I'll get back to you, Bruce. With the way the law is written, we've got so much time to send out the letters, and people have so much time to respond, 3 weeks, on the opt-outs. And then there's ComEd has 3 weeks of switching before your August meter reading date. So our time crunch is pretty much, we would have to decide tonight to meet our timeline of all the legal requirements that has to happen for this. Unfortunately, we, with the schedules and with new board members coming on and with the election and so on and so forth, we, I understood that it was desired to wait till the new village president took over and the new board members are on. So that's why we're in a time squeeze right now. Going back to this, if some of the ComEd rollbacks are based on the transmission and infrastructure costs, then that comes off the ComEd side of the bill, not on the energy side. So with that, that was kind of that legislation that was passed in 2016 where ComEd got the automatic infrastructure rate increases that they could automatically do every year. If that's part of that, if that's part of that legislation, if that's part of the rates that's being reviewed, Trustee Michael, then that's going to come off on everybody's part of the tab. No matter if you're on your own supplier, you're on the village supplier, or on ComEd.
And what about my question about, their ability to honor a locked rate and whether they had any of those issues that some of the other suppliers had this last winter?
No, in our area, if you sign a contract tonight, Dynegy goes out and locks in the rate for 3 years. They got that power locked in. If I go off on a segue just a little bit, it's about the nuclear stations. My main concern about the nuclear stations is they are so reliable. They saved our bacon twice during these polar vortexes. And I'll explain that just a little bit to everyone. Coal piles gets below zero, they pretty well freeze up. But that's not much of an issue anymore because coal is being used so little, especially in ComEd area. If we look at the Midwest, the rest of Illinois is shutting down coal plants and stuff also. Our restriction is natural gas. That's the favorite energy producer right now to make steam. There's plenty of natural gas. However, the pipeline is a restriction. And when there's restrictions or what the pipeline calls critical days, they tell the generating stations, cut back on your production. We got to reserve this heat for homes, businesses, and hospitals, things like that. So it's like they can't get the gas to where it needs to go, and they call that critical days. And we had several critical days again this winter. So my soapbox getting on a bandwagon is that we need these nuclear plants, not necessarily for lower rates, but to keep our system intact. So what happened in Texas doesn't happen here in the Midwest. And Bruce, I'm not too concerned about. We've got adequate power. Our wind generators operate in cold temperatures. The ones in Texas, they weren't geared to operate that low. The oil in the transmissions and stuff like that just turned into molasses. We got a little bit different environment here, and they're built a little differently.
But I just wasn't aware that Dynegy was sourcing its energy locally from our area. I thought they could source it from anywhere they wanted to.
Yes, they do.
Okay.
So is there some way to clarify the three options that we've got in front of us? Trustee Hollander?
Maybe Trustee Jamerson will remember, the last time we discussed this, I remember, is my memory correct in that there was a significant savings when we went as a community, unlike now where it appears to be very close? Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, when we signed up the last time, there was significant savings at the time. And then as Mike Mudge mentioned, there was a period when ComEd rates actually dropped for some unknown, I can't remember the reason.
All right.
And then they bounced back up again now.
But the decision was a little bit clearer because there was a significant difference. All right.
Okay, Trustee Clayton, did you have something?
I was just wondering, in the packet, there's the spreadsheet, and there's something on the far right called Offering Civic Grant. What is that?
Mike can verify this, but my remembering from the last time we did this is that the company, some of these companies, I'm not sure all of them do it, but they actually bump the rate up to all of the residents by 1/1000th of a cent or whatever it is. And then they turn around and grant that money back to the community. Is that not correct, Mike?
Right. And the previous boards, as we talked, no one wanted to do that. They said, you know, if we have a municipal tax, that's fine. We don't want to double tax people. But it is on our request for purchase. So we do put that on there that's available. And Rick is right, it's usually 1 mil. If the rate was 6.9 cents, then the rate would go to 7.0 cents. And there's no, you know, it just goes into the community chest. You do whatever you need to do out of the general fund or whatever with that money.
Feels like a tax. Trustee Haber?
So I just want to get a little clarity once more on what Lilia mentioned, because that does seem to be a differentiation between Dynegy and ComEd. So am I correct that if we do the aggregation and we go on Dynegy, we're going to pay that 6.947 rate, and we're not going to get any of those, any of the relief for, you know, nighttime usage or whatever Lilia referred to it as. But if we go on the ComEd, we're going to get the 6.985 relief, and we are going to get potentially a set off against that equal to that benefit for nighttime usage. Is that correct?
You have to sign up for that under ComEd, and that's available to anyone.
But available through Dynegy.
Right.
No, it's not available through Dynegy. And it's the same way with net metering. If your neighbor puts a solar panel system behind what we call behind the meter on their house, then they are in fact net metering. We always recommend that customer go on ComEd and stay on ComEd, because if you got credits built up and there's a contract change, just say 3 years down the road, you could lose what you got built up for credits. And for that, it takes 2 or 3 months to switch over from one to another. And for producing power, not getting any bank on it, they're not doing that. So there are programs that we always recommend you be on ComEd or you stay on ComEd. The advantage to this, if we went with a community garden solar, where it was offered to the residents to opt into it, if someone wanted to do that, we recommend they have to be on ComEd for that. So there's, the best thing to do is, there's a lot of options out there for people. That's why we want to go over them. We actually take the calls and find out what the people want to do. We let them know what their options are so they can make an informed choice. And people kind of getting used to that, because if they go back to ComEd, or if they go talk to a solar provider, sometimes they don't get the exact scoop that they need.
Okay, trustee Clayton.
It seems to me that if we're operating in a lot of uncertainty right at the moment, that the best course of action is to maintain as many options as possible. And am I correct in saying that if we go with the Dynegy option, then an individual resident could opt for Dynegy, they could opt for ComEd, or they could opt for community solar if they wanted to. If we don't do an aggregation, then that eliminates one of the options. So it seems to me that we don't need to predict the future. We just need to figure out which options that we can make available to the residents, and the more options, the better. So I would be in favor of the Dynegy approach.
Trustee Jamerson.
And I would agree with trustee Clayton. I mean, I think it makes sense to, even though the margin is very slim at the moment between the two, between ComEd and Dynegy, I think that by giving people the option later on to do whatever it is that they want to do. And there are other programs that ComEd offers. I'm not sure if they still do the program where they put a switch on your air conditioning compressor, and they can actually give you 15 minutes and they turn it off and you can get a credit for that. I don't know if they still do that or not, but
They still do.
that's a program, but once again, you can't be on Dynegy to do that. You have to be with ComEd. So, I mean, I think that if we do the aggregation, I don't think we're taking anything away from anybody. They have options. We just have to be prepared to educate everybody on those options. And to Mike's point, they have been very good. If someone calls the village hall, and they have over the last 9 years, with questions, and we send them to Mike, most of the time he can answer them. And they do get satisfaction. So for what it's worth, I mean, I think it makes sense to continue the program.
Lori?
If we do go with village aggregation, I would definitely want the opt-out to be clear for people who want to do something else. And I'm thinking particularly of the community solar. It should be very clear to people that they can opt out. And I also like Mike's idea of redoing the research and then providing the information to people as to which company you recommend, the village recommends, which is what they do in Highland Park.
Do I hear a motion?
Well, I don't know what the proper form of motion would be at this particular point, but I'd like to move that we go forward with the aggravation and opt for the Dynegy agreement, subject to review by the village attorney.
Is there a second?
It would be the 3-year agreement.
The 3-year agreement. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Is there any additional discussion? Comment? May I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastland,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Nay.
trustee Hollander,
Nay.
and trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda, I've written a memo to y'all about committee assignments and appointments. There is one small change on the last page. The DBR representative will be trustee Jamerson rather than former Mayor Norris. But my reasoning behind doing this is to clarify the committees and to allow the ability to expand the committee and have increase the volunteer network in the village. We do have to be mindful, however, as you go forward in these roles, we do have to be mindful of the Open Meetings Act. And so if you do decide to build a committee and have a number of volunteers on there, we will need to refresh what we need to do in that forum, mainly keeping notes and public notice and so forth. So again, this was just my attempt to clarify what we're doing, maybe redesign the committees a bit, and to get some assignments out there. I think I've spoken with each one of you about the assignments, and I think we're playing to our strengths. The other thing that I would like to do tonight, unless there are any comments on the memo or questions, yes, Trustee Jamerson.
I don't have necessarily a question. I just have a comment. I'm wondering if A, when the next Village Voice comes out, and B, would it be reasonable for us, if we were looking for residents to join these committees, to put an article in the Village Voice asking for people that might be interested to submit a resume to the village, so that we can see about maybe getting some village residents on these committees, as well as, you know, I mean, I wouldn't want someone on a committee that isn't capable of being on that committee, and that's probably not the right word, but
well, alignment of experience and knowledge with the mission of the committee. Yeah.
I wouldn't want someone to just be on the committee that has an axe to grind on a very specific topic, right? So we want to vet the people that we put on the committees, but I think that it would be worthwhile to advertise the fact that we're looking for people to join these committees.
I agree with that. I agree with that. We've had some volunteers. Katie and I took a ride in the truck, and a fella came out and he introduced himself, and we introduced ourselves, and he wanted to volunteer to work on the Woodlands, I think it was. And so passed along his name, and that's certainly, that would be Andy's, decision. It's all of your, the committee chairs, it's all of your decisions, who to accept, how many, and so forth, but you'll want a working committee. So yes, I think that's a great idea. And no, I don't know when the next Village Voice comes out, but I'm sorry, Trustee Dickon, did you?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, the next Village Voice comes out next month in July, but I also think, I think it's a great idea, Rick. And I think we should also communicate about the fact that we are recruiting, future committee members, and on the website, as well as, social media. I'm seeing a small spike of folks who are beginning to follow the Riverwoods Facebook page, small spike, but that's the way to get the message out.
Thank you.
Okay. I would also like to, start making sure we've got clean records on appointments to commissions and so forth. So with that in mind, I would like to reappoint all of the members of the Plan Commission and the chair of the Plan Commission. There's 6 members there, and I believe I need to, just bringing that to the board, I think I need the board approval for that. So to refresh your memory on the names of the members of the Plan Commission, Lori Braykoff, who's with us, Stephen Levin, Carrie Rothbard, Sherry Greditor, Carl Blaylock, and Jay Dat. So those are our current Plan Commissioners, and I would like the board's approval to reaffirm, reappoint, confirm their appointments.
So moved.
Second.
Do we need a roll call for this? We probably do. Roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
Trustee Dickon,
Aye.
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
Trustee Haber,
Aye.
Trustee Hollander,
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
And toward that end, the Zoning Board of Appeals, as you all know, has at least 1 vacancy, and then had 2. So I would like to reappoint the current members of the ZBA and add 2 more to that. The current members of the ZBA are, let me get my notes in front of me so I don't mess up. Here we are. Alan Hirsch, Sherry Graditor, Paul, I'm going to mispronounce his name, I apologize, Jazinski, Betty DeLuey. We would reappoint them. And adding to that appointment, Mike Marshall and Tim Bazard. And I would appoint Sherry Graditor as the chair of that commission. Trustee Hollander.
Is there any problem with having Sherry on both the plan and the zoning committees?
I did ask that question. Trustee Bruce Huvard, please.
It's not a incompatible office for them to be on both of them. It's okay.
Okay.
Mr. Bazard, and Mr. Marshall have been attending our meetings and have indicated an interest to become more involved in the village. So with that, I would ask for the board's approval for the reappointments and the new appointments.
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon.
Aye.
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
And lastly, under this topic, I've had some conversations about establishing a special committee of the board to focus on stormwater management. That's a very broad subject and it's a very important one to this village. And I'm asking trustee Jamerson to lead that effort. But I'd like the board's approval to establish this special committee of the board.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
You gonna second that? I'm pointing to trustee Jamerson.
Well, Clayton did. I wasn't sure I wanted to get it firsted, but
Surprise. So sorry. Okay, may I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
aye.
Who seconded that motion, please?
Trustee Clayton.
Thank you.
Okay. Mike Haber, did you have any questions? I saw your light go on. Okay. No old business. We'll go to standing committee reports, please. And you note on yours that these committees have been renamed with their new name and assignments. Trustee Haber has legal and police now. So
I just wanted to ask Bruce whether or not we've made any progress on getting the new trustees sexual harassment policy or training done, because I think that needs to get accomplished.
I haven't made much progress on that, and I couldn't even get onto the Attorney General website, which Chief Deno told me had been hacked for information on open meetings training, but we'll keep it on the list and try and get a schedule to everybody. That's one of the things that the mayor wanted to sit down with me about, is go over some of the personnel issues and training.
That's all I have.
thank you. Trustee Dickon? Would you like to comment on the communications committee at this point? Do you have a report?
Well, I guess we've got a long agenda, and as I started to dig into the weeds, that agenda is getting bigger and bigger. But in terms of trying to get the little easy things crossed off the list, we started out with standardizing some branding when it comes to electronic signatures, and I'd appreciate it if all of the trustees could just reconfirm that they've adopted the new signatures. I've gone a little bit deeper than I think Chris had anticipated into the website itself, and I will be reaching out to folks who have been involved in the past with the website to discuss some plans for the future, both on the legal front and in terms of contracts and just on the branding and communications front. And then it is absolutely on my agenda to put together a committee that will not just meet on a regular basis, but actually get stuff done.
Thank you very much. Trustee Jamerson? building, water and sewer only right now.
Yeah. Well, I have nothing on water and sewer because I haven't really dug into anything yet, but it's not literally. And the building report isn't ready because it's the 1st of June, so one was not finished today, so it's not in the packet.
Thank you. Trustee Eastman, brand new.
Brand new. The only thing I would add is that, the mayor and I had a good meeting to discuss priorities with the Woodlands. I understand it's a core part of Riverwood's brand. I plan on getting a meeting with Steve Zimmerman to discuss enforcement because that's it's clear to me now that that's a large issue. The other issues that we had discussed and that overlaps with what Lily is doing is communications. We have some materials that I'm going to go through and see if, it makes sense that we can still utilize them or what updates need to be made. So there's a couple different things I'm beginning to delve into and follow up on.
I think what should be noted too is that under this committee will be the relationships with the RPC and Brushwood.
Yeah, actually good thing you mentioned that. I want to reach out to Dave Schimberg and get a plan for reaching out to RPC since they're so critical in terms of the maintenance of the woodlands.
Thank you. Trustee Jamerson, you had a question.
Just one thing to add on to Andy's report real quickly. As I said before the meeting started, there's a lot of turnover, has been in South Riverwoods here in the last month.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the new residents are coming from the city, which is not surprising. But I think a lot of them think that they can just come and do whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to try and figure out a way to educate them as they come into the village. I know that we send a packet out, but I'm not sure they all pay attention to that. And I hear my neighbors with chainsaws and grinding up stuff in the forest, and it's a little concerning. So
do we have a target list of who these people are? I mean, maybe then we can formulate what the appropriate approach is to reach out. But I mean, is there a way of identifying who these actual new arrivals are? And
I believe
Pat Glenn actually Gewalt Hamilton actually puts together a list of new property transfers.
Okay.
How often that comes out.
I also think you could just run a report through MLS.
I was thinking about that. I mean, that may be a very quick and
I think that'd be just the easiest way to get this out of the way.
Right.
Commissioner Brightcove.
Might I suggest a party for new residents, and at that get together, you have somebody from RPC and maybe Steve talk about the woods and the guide and what some of the rules are, and just go through the whole thing. So you could have a wine and cheese, but also kind of have a focus.
That's actually a great idea. And I think if, things start to trend a little bit more towards normal, that might be a very kind of welcoming and also serve a dual purpose of educating them about, what their duties are in regards to the woodlands, right? I mean, it's so much of that stuff has been gone by the wayside, but certainly that would be a good way to go about it rather than, just kind of individual outreach. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. New residents could also benefit by our favorite exterminators and,
Sure.
like Airx or one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Let them, trade names that way. Anyway, moving on, Trustee Hollander.
Actually, the only thing I have really falls now under Rick Jamerson, and I'd be happy to hand it over to him. We were looking into finding some way of determining the depth of the wells and just how much the effect of the drought is going to involve us. And Pat Glenn and I and Chris have come up with at least some way of measuring them throughout the village and then reporting on it quarterly. But I see Rick has now got water in his bailiwick, and I formally now turn it over to you. I'll send you a copy of the emails that we've exchanged, and you can do it.
Thank you, Henry.
No other report.
Henry and I will take back every good thing I've ever said about you. No,
yeah.
There's payback's going to be tough, Henry. Payback's going to be tough. Trustee Clayton.
The only thing I have is something that I'll now hand over to trustee Eastman, but just to report that the brushwood program on the backyard habitat a couple of weeks ago, we had really an excellent participation of Riverwoods residents. We had 25 people on Zoom, and we had streaming 158 views on Facebook, which illustrates some of the power of the new channels that I'm sure trustee
Oh, that's great.
Dickman will look into. So that was a successful program, and I now hand that over to trustee Eastman.
Thank you.
Well, good. There's a lot of coordination going on here. So hopefully we can get more volunteers and move forward. I don't believe there's any need to go into executive session. Are there any comments from anybody before I announce that the next regular meeting is June 15th? And trustee Hollander.
We got an email saying that someone wanted to talk to us about this culvert. Did we not do that at this meeting because the resident wasn't here? I got an email from Daphne saying this was going to happen.
Attorney Hoover, would you like to address that?
Well, the resident asked for an extension of time before we took an enforcement action. And I think 2 extensions, and was going to, I think, ask the board to consider waiving this enforcement action because of various circumstances. We can't make the argument in the absence of the resident being here making the argument, so.
So it wasn't brought up because the resident wasn't here.
Correct. Well,
Okay.
and because otherwise it's just a normal enforcement action.
All right. Thank you.
And I just want to clarify that email was from Katie and
Oh,
not me.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I just
It
wanted the
was Katie.
record straight.
That was, I believe, in anticipation in the event that we had representation at the meeting. So if there's nothing more, may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
roll call.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Looks like she left a little early.
yeah, she emailed me that she was having some connectivity issues. There
Oh,
she
there
is.
she is. Okay.
Trustee Dickon for adjournment. Looks like she's frozen.
She's frozen.
We'll take that as a yes.
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
Census says she would.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson,
Aye.
and trustee Dickon.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Good
Thank
night.
you very much.
Night,
Good
everyone.
night.
Night, everyone.